Greetings and God's peace be with you. My name is Kristofer and I'm one of the priests at St. Francis Episcopal Parish and Community Center. I'm glad to have a chance to speak with you this morning. As promised, I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about something called the College for Congregational Development. This is a movement that started in the Pacific Northwest as part of the Episcopal Diocese of Olympia, but it has had impact and spread throughout not only the Episcopal Church, but the Anglican Communion as well. I'm glad to report that the College for Congregational Development has its own foundation here in the Diocese of Maryland. We launched this past summer in June and had our first training program, a week-long event out at the Claggett Center. The second part of that year, because it's a two-part program, will be this June at Claggett as well, and I hope you might consider being a part of that. But in the meantime, there's a lot that we can learn and do together as we explore this program and the models that it teaches. When I think about the call of St. Francis of Assisi and that profound voice that he heard to rebuild my house, God's voice telling St. Francis to rebuild, I believe that this tool that the college offers can be a profound use to congregations everywhere, but I believe it has and can have particular impact in our parish and community center. The first model that it teaches is something very simple in good Franciscan form as we build stone by stone, rebuild this church, this house, this world that God is calling us to heal and renew. These simple practices of gathering, transforming, and sending are the foundation of what the college teaches. When you think about it, gather, transform, and send, it makes sense. But when you look a little bit deeper at these practices, these core elements of our being as Christian community, there's a lot you can learn as we examine and evaluate and really look to go deeper in these areas at St. Francis. How are we called to gather? What are the spaces that we gather in? What does community look like? How do we spend our time when we do that? How are we doing this in creative ways virtually as we not only create space for people in all sorts of time and places to be able to engage and learn and grow together? How do we do this in hybrid forms as we try to create spaces of hospitality and welcome for all people? The practice of gathering is something that people of faith have been doing since the beginning of time. How we gather as social animals to be formed in the body of Christ, to become whole and strengthened, to be fed, not just for ourselves and our own purposes, but for the work of God, which leads to the second aspect of that transformation. So when we gather, as we're being transformed, it's not just enough to show up in the ways that we're called to, but how are we opening ourselves up to that transformative love and work of God in our hearts and minds? How are we giving ourselves over to God in ways that help us become more? How at St. Francis are we using tools and creative ways to be able to help shape our faith lives, to give us courage and strength and to send us out into the world to do the work we've been called to do? And this makes the third and final part of that model, the sending. Jesus sent the disciples out. He sent the 70 out. He sends us all out to share the gifts that we've been given. As we are sent out into the world, that takes many forms. And so for the ministry that you are called to as a follower of Jesus in this time and in this place, how is God calling you to go forth? How are we being called to gather, to transform, and to be sent out into the world? I don't have answers to all these questions, but I'm excited by the prospect of exploring this with you. Over the coming days, weeks, months, and even year, we're going to be exploring some of these models together in a variety of formats and fashions. I hope that you'll choose to participate as you're able and look to the Chronicle to see more information about the coming offerings. As we ponder the prophet Micah and our mission today at St. Francis, what does the Lord require of us? but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. I think the models that are taught by the College for Congregational Development can really help us at St. Francis to do this work of rebuilding that God calls us to. I wonder how we will be called to gather, to transform, and to be sent. Thanks for listening, and until next time, God's peace be with you.